My name's Peter Tarias, and I want to talk about the very first game I bought for the Nintendo, Ninja Kid. To be completely honest, I didn't like the game all that much as a kid. But a combination of the pandemic and a sense of nostalgia motivated me to play through it again, as I wanted to see how it holds up all these years later. It's funny because there's so much I've forgotten about my childhood, including the store I bought the Nintendo and the game at, but I still remember the layout of the game store and the shelves inside as I bought my first Nintendo game. Now, I had the choice of purchasing any game along with the system. I could have picked Zelda, Metroid, or a slew of other great games. I knew of them because one of my elementary school friends, a kid named Rodney, had the games. I'd go over and play them as late as I could until I had to rush back home before it was dark. I still remember the sense of awe I had playing Zelda for the first time. So, I don't know why, but I picked Ninja Kid. And even back then, the game was strange and a little bit creepy. It's based on a popular manga in Japan. The comic revolved around Japanese folklore and the main character Kitaro, who was born in a cemetery. He also had no left eye, his empty socket being covered by his streaming hair. He fought for the fates of both humans and spirits known as yokai. I didn't know any of this when I first bought it, and I just liked the fact that it had a ninja who happened to be a kid. The game was developed by Tosei and published by Bandai in the mid-80s. Unfortunately, mention of the original Kitaro was eliminated in favor of the eponymous Ninja Kid for the American release. The gameplay, however, was kept the same. The manual says the object of the game is that you're the junior defender of human rights Ninja Kid who battles the notorious monsters of Demon Island, would-be conquerors of the free world. He must fight the ferocious giant demon, ruler of the infamous Demon Island. With your help, Ninja Kid can conquer all evil and restore peace to the world. Sounds epic. Ninja Kid starts the player in an oval map called Demon Island Map, with the first area resembling a garden. From there you can enter any of the fighting fields, which look like the white castles and arches on the screen. There's usually 3 to 5 per map, along with a final castle where you fight off against the boss. To its credit, there is a bit of variety in the stages as they each have a different objective. In the Blazing Inferno, you guide a flame or lighter to light 10 candles while deftly avoiding some steep falls. There's a slight delay in the fire spirit's motion, and so being able to guide them to the candle required a bit of practice. In another, you have to swallow or absorb 10 demon spirits while rushing through a poison field. I don't know what Ninja Kid does after he ingests the spirits, but it's a weird way of grabbing fast food. My favorite was the fighting field called the Dogfight, where Ninja Kid rode a kite and used his daggers and shurikens to kill aerial tadpoles against a polluted purple backdrop dripping with violet ooze. The objective in each of the levels is to find the magic scroll which permits entry into the demon castle. You can also gain a flute when you've achieved 9 of the 10 objectives in a given level. The flute allows Ninja Kid to summon allies during the boss fight. Ninja Kid could summon a Pegasus, Eagle, and Mirror Lady. They ward off the boss attacks or hold the demon in place, making the fights much easier in what's called the Challenge of Shangri-La. There are sub-weapons that grant Ninja Kid additional powers like invincibility and fire flames, though these are temporary. These power-ups don't make up for the fact that the controls feel loose and Ninja Kid can feel like he is floating at times. As there are no continues, at least not that I know of. If you lose all your lives, that's it. I never could beat this game even though I played it endlessly. As a kid, I didn't understand that there could be such a thing as a bad game. This was the only game I was going to have for at least half a year to a year, so I had no choice but to continue hammering on it. The levels kept on going forever. I especially struggled with Demon Hell. Once you accomplish your objective, 2 doors pop up. One leads you back to the map, the other to Hell. If you were lucky to find an owl or a Goomba looking kid, they'd show which path leads back to safety. If not, it was a matter of luck. You descend into a vertical tower of blocks. An enormous face is positioned at the top, hurtling enemies and deadly projectiles. You're stuck there until you beat it, and many of my playthroughs ended stuck in those depths. The enemies were some of the most bizarre ever. A blue woman with 2 faces and a snout, a rock star boss firing musical melodies, and a King Kong Cyclops fused beast. Ninja Kid himself was clad in blue and always had a goofy smile. Surrounded by some of the most horrendous beasts ever, his cheery mien was an unusual contrast. The animation was also interesting. When he dies, his legs go up in the air and there's a dramatic drop to the bottom of the screen. That death chime grated on my ears. While it lacked polish, Ninja Kid had an artistic flair that was macabre and unlike any other title on the market. There were a lot of distinctive stages, even if the objectives were recycled. The music wasn't great, but the tunes could be catchy. I do wish there was even a little bit of story contained in the game, a la a much better ninja game, Ninja Gaiden. Also, having different music on the different fighting fields would have gone a long way to increasing its replayability. But I was stuck with it, playing it again and again. And it's weird to think when I reflect on my childhood, Ninja Kid is disturbingly intertwined with memories of homework and frustration. It's ironic because these days, where games are so much more easily accessible, I've accumulated a pretty big backlog, and I am certain I have games that I won't even get to play the rest of my life. It's the opposite problem of my childhood, where I had a lot of time and only one game, versus now, where I have thousands of games and barely any time. It does get me thinking how, because of the scarcity of games, it forced me to experience and play any game I bought thoroughly, or as thoroughly as I could. Is that a better state to be in? I don't know, but it did help me to beat some games I never would have right now, and it helped me to gain an appreciation for them that I otherwise wouldn't have had. Adventure of Link had me stumped forever, but I had to beat it, and I'm so glad I did. Deadly Towers is another game that I'm glad to have conquered. I know it gets dogged on a lot, but when I defeated the Deadly Towers as a kid, it was an amazing feeling. I have countless other games I can think of that I forced myself to finish, like Super Highlight, Ultima Exodus, and many more, and am always grateful for that time. Unfortunately, despite being stuck with Ninja Kid, it's one of the few Nintendo games I own that I never beat. I read from several online sources that the game goes on indefinitely, looping after the first 8 missions with no actual ending. I've gotten to level 17 and can confirm that at least for the first 2 rounds, it just loops. The enemies do get faster and more difficult with the new rounds, and the sheer number of fighting fields per map increases. On YouTube, I did find a video by Dursmer pointing out that there is a way to beat the game as long as you use the proper summons of the eagle form. I've actually tried to replicate that multiple times on that final boss, but I haven't been able to reproduce it. I did notice in his YouTube video he's on level M0, which might be way beyond level 16. I'm actually not sure. Of course, the ending I saw wasn't anything special. It's 2 doors and a the end on the screen. Still, it was never about the ending itself, but rather the sense of accomplishment at having finished one of the most difficult games of my childhood. Surprisingly, despite not being a great game, it isn't cheap to pick up. I don't know if I'd recommend it, especially as a complete price can go for quite a bit, but I personally liked it a lot more than I thought I would, and I'm glad I got the chance to visit it again. As always, thanks for listening. I really appreciate everyone who listened to my thoughts on Ninja Kid. There is actually a Japan-only sequel, and I'll end on footage from the game. Maybe I'll review it one day, but until then, see you next time.